Hi, I'm Angus Kress Gillespie, your host for East Brunswick Television. I'm here today with Old Bridge, New Jersey resident Captain Daniel Zorovich. Daniel is a graduate of SUNY Maritime College in the Bronx, New York. He's currently serving as mate on board the tugboat Ava McAllister, which is home ported at Staten Island, New York, not very far from the Bayonne Bridge. His tugboat is one of a number of such vessels involved in ship docking for ships arriving in either New York or New Jersey. Such tugboats position themselves according to directions from the towing company's docking pilot, who controls the docking operation from the bridge of the incoming ship. As ships have gotten larger and larger, the power and design has changed. As Daniel will explain, the tugs of today can perform with amazing agility. So Daniel, how did family tradition play a role in your career choice?
You know, I think tradition was, it's been in the family for a long time. So my grandfather was in the maritime industry, my father. And what tradition did was it exposed me to it at an early age. And that's what really got me to, enjoy it and fall in love with it. It wasn't the tradition so much itself. It was just, my father started bringing me on the tugs when I was 8, and I'm looking at these gigantic ships and these, tugboats, and what 8-year-old boy isn't going to like that stuff? So, I was lucky to be exposed to that at an early age. But, in fact, growing up, as I was getting older, my father said, look, he never pushed this industry on me. He never said, consider this. He told me to consider other things. He says, this exists. Try to find out other careers that are out there that you may not know about. You may like those just as much, if not more. And I did, but I really just, I don't know, I thought it was really, really cool. And as I got older and was able to understand it more, it just got more and more interesting.
And knowing what I know about your career, how come you went to a maritime college instead of just come up through the ranks?
That's a good question. So going to a maritime college really puts you several steps ahead of someone who didn't.
You could do it.
You can.
The other way.
Yes, it's difficult. The term we use in the industry is someone who came up, through the industry is a hawse-piper, without going to college. A hawse-pipe is the pipe on a ship where the chain for the anchor goes through. Yeah. So it's kind of like you're climbing up the pipe.
You sneak in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And today it's more difficult than it used to be. Now there's a lot of classes you have to take, and you have to take these classes while you're working. And these are not just one-day courses. Some of these are like a week long. So you have to figure that out with your schedule. If you go to a college, it's all pre-figured out.
Laid out for you.
It's laid out for you. You pay, show up, pass your classes, do what they ask of you, and then you're in good shape. You get your license and you get a degree, and you're pretty well set
It's a head start.
It definitely is, yeah.
So why settle for a 2-year associate's degree rather than go for broke for the 4-year?
In my industry, the diploma really doesn't do much. It doesn't matter. You don't need anything. I don't even think you need to know how to read or write. I'm pretty sure that the Coast Guard still, to this day, will allow people to take their Coast Guard license exams orally. Oh. So as far as the companies go, it's all about the license. That's our diploma, is the license. So for me, it was I can get the 2-year degree and come out 2 years earlier, hit the ground running, start working, get a head start, or get the 4-year degree, and I didn't see the need for it. I talked to my parents about it, and it really didn't seem necessary.
How did you feel about the military aspects of a maritime college?
I didn't personally care for it too much. I think I understand why they did it. There's a certain, chain of command on vessels, and, if the captain or the mate, is talking to a subordinate, and he tells him, hey, you have to do X, Y, and Z. You can't, in the heat of the moment, while you're doing something, while you're towing a barge, while you're docking a ship, you can't explain things. There's no time. You do it. As someone being told. So as a deckhand, when I was a deckhand, if my captain or my mate said something to me, I just did it. You can talk about it later, and I think that's the kind of mentality that they wanted to instill in people. Did I appreciate being screamed at 4 a.m, being told I was worthless? Not particularly, no. I did. Maybe I'm just thin-skinned. I don't know, but I didn't care for that part of it. But
I can sort of see it both ways.
Yeah.
You need a chain of command.
Yes.
But you don't need a lot of Mickey Mouse.
No, and I think I had a tough time with it because I've been exposed to it, and my father always told me that this is how it works. So I was like, okay, I didn't need to be taught sort of like the chain of command. Oh yeah, the captain says do it, I do it. You know what I mean? So maybe some people need to get that message driven home. I don't know, but it is what it is. They've been my college has been around since 1867, I believe, SUNY Maritime College, and they've been doing this. They've been doing it like this ever since. So I guess it works for them.
How difficult was it for you to get your first Coast Guard license?
It was tough because I put a lot of pressure on myself because this is my career, this is my life. I need to pass this test. And there's a very big pool of questions that they pull from. And I forget how many. I think it's like 10,000 questions, possible questions you can get, yeah. And is
it published, that list?
Yes. Yeah, there are these books. Oh, and you can also, there's a software that I used.
Yeah.
But 3 of the tests, there's 6 modules. 3 of them you have to get a 90 on.
Ooh.
And the other 3 you have to get a 70. So there's a good amount of studying that goes into it. And the way it worked at my college was I did all my schooling, and then I did my internships. I was a cadet on various tugboat vessels, and then I had to take my test. So when it came time to take my test, I had kind of forgotten a lot of the things that I was taught in school over the past 2 years. So I had to go back and relearn everything. But I passed every module on the first try, so I got lucky. But it was definitely. I remember when
scary.
It was scary, and I used to tell myself, after I passed my test, I'm gonna go party and go crazy that night. Well, I was way too tired to do. I just went home, had dinner, and went to sleep because it was a long. You take 2 modules per day for 3 days, so it's a long, stressful, horrible 3 days, but totally worth it.
So tell me a little bit about your initial experience as a deckhand. What was that, the Bruce A. McAllister?
Yep, the Bruce McAllister. My first job, I was actually in Riverhead, Long Island. My family has a summer house out there, and I get a call from the office. And the personnel manager says, hey, I need you to go on the Bruce. They're towing a barge up to St. John's, Canada. I'm like, oh, man. And I really didn't want to go. But it's my first, my first opportunity. If you say no, they may not call you again. So I'm like, okay, oh yeah, sure, And it was several days. I think it was about 4 or 5 days to get up there, up through the Bay of Fundy, up into St. John's. A beautiful area. But I'd never done it before. I'd never been. I was the deckhand on my watch by myself, and we're towing this 100,000 barrel asphalt barge. And it was certainly exciting. It was an interesting experience for my first time, for sure. But everybody was great. Everybody on the tug was very helpful. They knew I was new and that I just graduated, and everybody helped me out. And I learned a lot on that trip.
And how did you get a chance to learn about steering on the Ellen McAllister?
So the Ellen is a tractor tug. It has they're called azimuthing drives. So the drives, there's no rudders. It's different from a regular boat or a ship. The propellers rotate independently 360 degrees, and so that means
so you can turn on a dime.
You can turn on a dime. You make the boat go sideways, diagonally. You can steer going backwards, steer going ahead. It can do almost anything. So it's a little tricky to. It's not intuitive. Anybody, a regular boat, pretty much you want to go forward, you push the throttles forward. You want to go backwards, you pull the throttle. The tractor tug is totally different. So basically, what had happened was there was a gentleman who was a mate on that boat. He went to the Merchant Marine Academy, and they have their obligations every couple of years, I believe. They take part in the Naval Reserves.
Oh yeah.
So he had a 3-month engagement, I believe. He was going away. That they were taking him to do something. So
like
then
in the Navy Reserve.
Correct. Yeah. So they needed somebody to fill in for 3 months. So they basically just called me up and said, "Do you want to try figuring the boat out?" I found out later that there were 3 people ahead of me that had seniority that they had tried first.
They didn't want to do it.
No, they couldn't. They couldn't pick it up. They were having a hard time learning it. So, but they were all a bit older. It does seem to suit this type of tugboats. Seems to suit younger people. It's almost like a big video game.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like playing a video game.
Yeah. And I kind of refer it to, people say snowboarding is harder to learn, easier to master. Skiing is easier to learn, harder to master. I call tractor tugs like snowboarding. They're harder to learn, but once you get the hang of it, it's I think easier, in my opinion. Huh. But so they trained me for about 2 weeks, and I was able to figure it out. I still wasn't 100%, but they were like, "Are you ready to go?" And yeah, kinda, and I had a lot to learn, but luckily I didn't hit anything, and everything worked out.
After about 4 years with John Moran, you returned to McAllister. Why?
I did, yeah. Because there were some opportunities there to become a harbor pilot, a docking pilot with McAllister. It depends on the pilots that are currently there, who's retiring, stuff like that. So there seemed to be more opportunities there. And they, called me up and mentioned that to me, and I absolutely, I would love to do that.
So it's fair to say your long-run ambition would be to be a docking pilot.
Correct.
And what is the job of a docking pilot exactly?
Basically, a harbor pilot or docking pilot, vessels, ships travel all over the world, and the ship captains, they can't know every harbor by heart. They travel everywhere. So when a ship comes to New York or any port for that matter, a local expert will get on the ship. In New York, it's at the Verrazano Bridge, so the ship is underway, and the tugboat will come alongside the ship. We'll put the docking pilot on the vessel, and then with a radio, he'll talk to the tugboats and orchestrate the whole deal. So his job is to get the ship from, in New York's case, the Verrazano Bridge to the dock safely. And the harbor is tight. There's some twists and turns, and so the most of these ships are too large to maneuver by themselves, so they need tugboats, and we'll push and pull to get the ship to the dock safely. So I take my orders from the pilot via radio. He tells me what to do, where to pull here, push there, and that's what I would like to do at some point.
It's fair to say the harbor pilot or docking pilot is like the team captain. He manipulates the tugboats to make things happen.
Exactly.
And it's also kind of interesting when these ships come from overseas. Everybody says they're coming to New York Harbor, but you and I know New York Harbor today is mostly in New Jersey.
Most of New York Harbor is New Jersey, absolutely. Port Elizabeth, all the oil terminals are in Jersey. Port Newark. As far as New York, there's the cruise ship terminals. There's Red Hook. There's a aggregate dock over in Brooklyn. There's a Red Hook terminal over in Brooklyn. There's Howland Hook terminal in Staten Island, and then KMI Staten Island further south. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is New Jersey.
The majority of the vessels are going to Port Newark or Port Elizabeth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's fair to say that the compensation for tugboat captains is good, but
it's decent, yeah.
In talking to many of them, I hear a lot of complaining, like the 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, you miss a lot of stuff.
You do. I tell people, you miss half of everything. Half of birthdays, half of holidays, anniversaries. But at the same time, I only work 182 days a year, so it's I have a love-hate relationship with it. So like right now, I'm due back to work in a couple days, and I'm starting to dread it. But when I get off, I'm like, oh, this is great. I got 2 weeks off, and then time flies, of course. But
we all know that government regulation has increased over time in almost every industry. Is it true for tugboat industry? Is there more paperwork than there used to be?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It used to be you just filled in the logbook, the record log, for the tug, and now there's a lot of environmental, safety things, a lot of record keeping, a lot of keeping up with the various different safety equipment on the boat, and they check that very often. So Coast Guard has a lot of more inspections, and you need to make sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So it's definitely more than it was.
Let's talk about the time, November 2013, over on the New York side. You were undocking the USS New York, which is a Navy warship.
Yes.
And the Navy warships have their own peculiarities. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I was 23 years old at the time.
Pretty young.
I just was steering for like a year, and so it was the first time that the New York had come to New York. It was in Chelsea Piers, up where the cruise ships go. And so the pilot says to me, okay, we have to back the ship out of the slip into the river. So, and he says, okay, well, what you do is when a ship is going astern, there's no way to steer it. So you'll have a tug on the bow of the ship, just kind of nudging it left and right as it goes astern, as the ship goes backwards, to help steer it out of the slip. And so he goes, okay, I'm going to need you to, the term is follow the bow. So I need you to follow the bow of the ship and give it little, adjustments as needed. But just so you know, there's a multi-million-dollar sonar down there under the water. You can't see it, but it's there, and you can't hit it. But I need you to be very, very quick and fast with your maneuvers. So I'm like, oh God. And meanwhile, we have these. They were Marines on board my tugboat with big guns, and they had bomb sniffing dogs, and there's cameras. News. All the news networks was the West Side Highway, and I could see all their trucks, and they've got cameras pointed at us. So I'm like, oh my God, if I screw this up, I'm gonna get canned. So, it worked out, no problems, but it was definitely a stressful moment.
It's almost an impossible thing. Don't hit the sonar, but you don't know where it is, and you can't see it.
And you have to do it as quickly as you possibly can. Yeah. So it was, it worked out, but it was, I was a little stressed.
A moment ago we talked about your long-run ambition to become a harbor pilot, the team captain, as it were, of the tugboats. What are the steps in becoming a harbor pilot?
So you have to, first of all, get the license, and the license consists of, the test consists of drawing the harbor from memory. So there's about 20 different sections of New York Harbor, and they'll give you the outline of land. Just a chart, which is a nautical map. We call them charts.
So you have to show every buoy.
Every buoy, its characteristic, its color, its number, whether or not it has a bell. You have to put in all the shoals, the depths, the bridges, everything has to be in the correct spot. You can't just like willy-nilly, It's got to be, they have a certain margin of error that they go by. And you just have to.
There's a lot of detail on
It's a lot. Each one is hours and hours. I wouldn't say it's hard. It's just, you have to force yourself to put the time in. I mean,
because it's not fun.
No, it's definitely not fun. That's horrible. It was
It's like memorizing.
It's just straight memorizing, it's painful. It's just over and over again. Draw the chart, practice it. You have the real chart with you, and when you're at home practicing, you're just drawing it over and over again. And then
how many of those do you have to do?
About 20. Some of them are harder than others. Some of them take an hour. The hardest one took me about 8 hours.
Have you done them all?
I'm all done.
Wow.
Thank goodness. But yeah, it took about 8 years to do everything.
So it's checked off from the Coast Guard.
That's checked off.
But what's the next step?
To become an apprentice. To become an official apprentice. So
let me guess. There has to be an opening.
There has to be an opening, and there has to be a need, correct. And luckily, there are some gentlemen that senior pilots that have retired or are about to retire, and they because it's a group, and they don't need too many guys, because then everyone makes less money. But they also don't want too few guys, because then they don't want to work too hard either. So there's a fine balance of how many pilots are in their association. But yeah, luckily for me, there's a need, and next month they're going to swear me in as an apprentice, and then as an apprentice you go up on the ships with the pilots, and they will let you do some jobs that they see fit, smaller ships, easier jobs in the beginning of your apprenticeship, and then as you do it, and year 2 of your apprenticeship, they'll let you start doing bigger jobs and bigger ships and more difficult things. And
Are you paid as an apprentice?
No. I still have my day. I still have my regular job, tugboat captain, and then on my time off, I have to go in and do this.
In your so-called time off.
So-called time off. Yeah, not really time off, but yeah.
That's when you have to do your apprenticeship.
Correct.
And how long does that take?
It's about 2 years.
Okay.
It's about 2 years.
So, looking back on your career so far, what are some of the difficult decisions you had to make as a tugboat captain?
I've been lucky. I knock on wood, I've been lucky thus far. I really haven't had anything too difficult. I had a crew member get sick one night, and we had to figure out how to get him to the hospital. But that was over. Thank goodness he was fine. We worked it out. We got him off the boat safely, and he was, I think he had a ruptured appendix. Knock on wood, I really haven't had anything too difficult. Just dealing with, one of the hardest parts is dealing with people. You live with these people for 2 weeks on end, and some of these people are your bosses, some of these people are your subordinates, and you're. It's
even worse than a college dorm because it's 24/7.
Oh yeah. And there isn't the only time you're really private is when you're in your room, and that's one time you have privacy. So it's just the constant. It's the living and breathing tugboats for 2 weeks. It gets difficult, but no, I haven't had any hard decisions to make.
And what have you done in the recent past to improve your skills as a tugboat captain?
I think you have to always analyze. I haven't had any. There's some recurring courses we have to take for safety, but as far as I do it on my own time. I've read books on leadership management. They're not required, but I do it myself. I think it helps. And I just always analyze my work and try to just think about what I could have done better.
And what is your management style?
I think I just like to be down to earth and just talk to people like I like to be talked to, and I don't like to be too professional. I like to keep it relaxed. And hey, man, would you mind doing X, Y, and Z? And just a very, very relaxed sort of mentality. I like to have a good time and laugh. But when the time comes to get serious, we get serious and we do what we have to do. But let's sit out and have a good time if possible.
Yeah, that reminds me, when I was a volunteer fireman, I never got a direct order. It was always, would you mind doing this?
Same thing.
Yes, I did it.
Right. And I mean, there's been times where I've said, hey, I need you to do this now.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But I don't enjoy doing that at all.
And as we're winding things down, one thing that always kind of bothered me is the idea of a tugboat. Tugging suggests pulling, and originally tugboats sort of pulled barges.
Yeah.
But your work in ship handling, doesn't have too much to do with towing or pulling.
No.
So the work of a tugboat has kind of changed over time.
Yeah, I mean, some tugboats they do tow barges, but my boat in particular, we just do ship assist work. And yeah, I mean, ships have their own engines. That's how they, people are, do you tow the ships? No, they how do you think they get from, around the world? They have their own engines. They have under their own power. We just help nudge them to the dock. So it's more pushing at this point than pulling that used to be.
But you can only push in certain places, right?
On the ship?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll have. I mean, for the most part, we have these big rubber fenders on the bow, on the front of the tug, on the bow, and you want to be, wherever the pilot tells you. But there are some areas where you're not allowed to put. You'll say no tug or something. Where
also there's marks where you should be.
Correct.
Put.
Where there's reinforcement. For the ribs inside the ships. Yeah. Yes.
And so as we're winding things down, what do you like to do outside of work?
Outside of work, I like to not think about tugboats for a couple weeks. I love my job, but it's nice to definitely have my off time. I'm in a singing group. We sing Broadway songs. We travel here, there, and everywhere, and that's actually how you and I met randomly at a gig one night. I like to sing and spend time with my friends and family and a lovely girlfriend. And everything is. My time off is nice. My family has a sailboat. We go sailing in the summers when the weather's nice. So, yeah, I can't complain.
So I guess sometimes you have a potential gig, but you got to work.
Yeah, so they have somebody that fills in for me when I have to work. And the group leader, he has my schedule, so he knows when I'm working and he knows when I'm off. And if I'm off, great, I go do a show. If I'm working, I'm working. I miss the show, but work comes first. So.
And Scott, finally, New York Harbor, Port Newark, Port Elizabeth. This is where we import most of the stuff that we buy.
Yeah.
Do you feel a sense of satisfaction that you are fulfilling the shelves of Amazon and Target? Is a sense of completion?
Yes. I'm assisting in people's retail therapy. I do feel like, hey, maybe I help, bring in this table, this coffee mug, and it certainly is nice that I'm helping, doing my part to make the world go round,
Yeah, and the whole thing about importing stuff from Port Newark and Port Elizabeth, it's not just New Jersey, but what happens is we have trains, we have trucks.
Right.
I think we are supplying through Port Newark and Port Elizabeth, Ohio, Indiana, almost all the way to Chicago. It's a huge.
Oh yeah, it's at least the tri-state area, and then like you said, and there are we also do tankers, and there are pipelines that just go everywhere. I mean, there's maps that you can get, and you can search online, and it looks like a spider web, and they come from New York, and they just go everywhere, and so we supply oil and fuels all over the country, and yeah, you're right. So there's. The harbor never stops.
Yeah.
It's constant ships coming and going, which is great. That's why I love it. It's exciting.
Well, Captain Daniel, thanks for sharing your information with us here on East Brunswick Television.
Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Angus. I appreciate it.
Okay.